Hi, fifth and sixth graders. This is Mrs. Kalan. I'm coming to you from my house. Um, I am happy to see all of you, even though I can't really see all of you. I hope that all of you are doing well, that you're spending some quality time with your family during this very unusual time that we're going through. I really hope that we will be back together in person at school soon. But in the meantime, I'm going to be joining you at least once a week, maybe more, um, for some library related activities from the library at my home. As you can see, I've got plenty of books behind me. I've got two sleeping kids in the next room, and I am thinking of you and all of the wonderful things that we will still be able to do together from here. So today I wanted to talk to you about what you can be reading and how you can be reading it when you're at home. Already, even in the last couple of days, I've heard from a couple of your teachers and a couple of your families asking that very question. How do we get books and what should we be reading? Because we have time. You're at home, and this is a perfect opportunity to read some really wonderful books. So, I wanted to share a few resources with you today. And I'm going to send along, in addition to this video, an email or document that will have all of links to all of the things that I'm talking about here. So you don't need to worry, you don't need to write it all down. I'm going to send it along. So first of all, as of now at least, there are a couple of bookstores that are still very happy to be providing books to you, and I love to be supporting the bookstores in our community, just as much as we love libraries, having bookstores that are so dedicated to sharing great books with, especially with you guys, with young readers, really makes a big difference in our community. So, as of now, I know that Roman's Bookstore in Pasadena, I believe just the Pasadena location, but they might be doing this from the Hastings Ranch location as well. I'll send along a link. They're delivering books. Don't go to the store. The store will not be open for you to be shopping there, but you can call them. And I think they're doing online orders and delivery for books that you might want. And they have a huge selection. So pretty much anything you want, they will have, and they are delivering it for 99 cents. Once Upon a Time Bookstore in Montrose, which actually is the store that helps to coordinate a lot of our author visits. That's who helped us get Sarah Pennypacker at our school just a few weeks ago. They are still open for business. Again, not for shopping in person, but they will do curbside pickup for books that you might want. So I will send a link. You can give them a call and they will sell you books. But the other way that you can still get books, while most libraries are closed at the moment, I hope that you can still make use of your library card with the Libby app. Some of you may be using this already. I certainly have been for the last couple of years, and I absolutely love it. Now, you can raise your hands at home. How many of you already are listening to audiobooks or reading ebooks in some way? Maybe either on a Kindle, on an iPad, on a phone. Libby is the app that is provided by many public libraries. It's through a company called Overdrive. They work with most public library systems to be able to loan out audiobooks and ebooks, books that you can listen to, books that you can read on a device. So you don't even have to leave your house to get a great new book. Now, I'm generally a paper book kind of girl. I like to hold something in my hand and turn the pages. But, there are certain times that call for something different. I love to listen to audiobooks when I'm driving. My kids like to listen to audiobooks in the car. My son, who likes to read or listen to a lot of books that he can't really read on his own yet, he likes to listen to a lot of them as audiobooks when I can't be there to read to him in person. So it's a right now, I think this is a great option for being able to get as much reading material as you may want. I'm going to send a video that has a tutorial about just about using the Libby app. It will walk you through all the different features, but it is pretty self explanatory once you get into it. If you have a library card, um, just explore and you will be able to find what you want. It's pretty easy going. Um, I took a look, I just browsed through looking for a whole bunch of books that I'm going to be recommending to you just to see if they were available in audiobook or ebook format from the library. The library has just about all of them in both formats. Are they all available right away? It's a library, so just like when you go to the library and you might want to see if the book that you want is available, if they have it in that branch where you're going to, um, they don't always have it in. You might have to wait for it. The same is true, weirdly, even though there's not like a physical book, you'd think that more than one person could listen to or read the same audiobook at the same time. But there are all sorts of rules that the publishing companies come up with that just to make it fair so that authors get paid for their work. And um, so libraries have a certain number of copies of these books, and you might need to wait for your turn to read or listen to a certain one. But in just browsing through, it looked like many of these books that I'm going to be recommending to you, and I'm going to send out a list as well of books that I think are great for you to read right now at this moment in time. Most of them are available to you either right away, it looks like, or within probably a few days to a week or two. So uh, check it out. I will send you the tutorial, and please, I hope everybody has a library card. My guess is that even if you don't, you probably still could sign up for one online. It doesn't matter what library system you have a card through. Personally, I have a Los Angeles Public Library card. But if you have a Glendale library card, if you have a Pasadena library card, if you have a library card from any of these systems, they all work with Overdrive and Libby. So please check that out. The other thing I wanted to tell you about, so we talked about where you can get books. What should you be reading? Um, as always, I have so many recommendations for you. I don't think you should feel at all limited by not having the library at your fingertips um, right now, because you do have your um, digital passport to books through the Libby app. And if you do want to get a book in your hands at the moment, you can visit the sites of those two bookstores that are still open and delivering books. So, what should you be reading? Well, one program that I wanted to just tell you about, because it happens to be going on right now, totally separate from the situation we're in being at home right now, is the California Young Readers Medal. Now, this is a student selected book award. There are a couple of those going on right now. One of them I'm going to also be sharing with the fifth graders and doing some read alouds that will be voting on our favorite books from this sort of series and awarding a book a prize. The California Young Readers Medal is an award that's given in a few different categories of books for different age groups every single year. Each age group will vote on out of a couple of nominees of books that are for their kind of level and age group um, that have been selected, and they're not all brand new books. I found this interesting. They're books that actually in each of these categories are a few years old, but they're sort of books that are now starting to stand the test of time. One thing that I love about all of the books that have been chosen this year is they are all really exciting. They're page turners. Um, they're really different from each other, but they're books that sort of have wide appeal. So I just wanted to show you. I have two of the three of them in the intermediate category here with me at home. I brought them home from the library um, this week before we were all at home. And just wanted to share them with you. And you can get them yourself either through electronically through the Libby app, or if you feel like calling up one of those bookstores and getting a copy of one of them in person. I have a feeling that they will have these books on hand. So I'm going to just sort of show you each of these two that I have here. The third book I don't have with me here, but I can tell you about it a little bit. And this is something, again, it's totally optional, but it's a great opportunity to read all these three books. None of them are particularly long. They're all really exciting, and have get to have your say in this book award. I'm going to send out all of the information on how you participate to your teachers, and they'll get that information to you so you have it all at home should you choose to participate. So the first book that's a nominee for California Young Readers Medal in the intermediate category is The War I Finally Won. This is the sequel to The War That Saved My Life, which, if you haven't read that, I highly recommend it. You can totally read The War I Finally Won even without reading that, but I think that the War That Saved My Life is one of my absolute favorite books of the last 10 years. So if you're going out to get this and you haven't read the other one, grab that too. I just give you a little bit of the backstory. The War That Saved My Life, the first book, is the story of 11-year-old Ada, who has had a really difficult life so far. She was born with a clubfoot, which means that her leg was has a fairly common deformity that nowadays is usually fixed at birth, but this takes place in England just at the beginning of World War II, and her family is very poor. Her mother is not the most caring mother, and she has been pretty much locked away, hidden from sight for her whole life until the war starts, and many of the children of London are taken out of the city to be safe during the war, when there are many bombings happening in London at that time. She and her younger brother are sent out of the city. Actually, they are sent. They join a group of children who are being sent out, even without their mother's permission to leave, and and find a caring guardian at this time. And really, for Ada, it's the first time that she's really ever had any positive adult figures in her life and any exposure to the outside world. So that's sort of the background of The War That Saved My Life. In The War I Finally Won, Ada is still now living with Susan, her guardian. The war's continued, and now they're being joined by another person who is in need of help. But the situation is complicated by the fact that this person is another refugee, a refugee from Germany, a Jewish girl who is sent to live with them, who has escaped the hardships and danger of living as a Jew in Germany during World War II. Her life is in danger, and she manages to flee and is living under the care of Susan as well. Ada isn't sure whether she can trust her. She's German. The Germans are the enemy at this time. She doesn't really understand that 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 both of their lives are sort of being sheltered at this time. Ada is also not used to having a friend and a companion her own age. The way that they are getting to know each other is totally brand new to her. So this, I think, these two books together make a really wonderful full story. They're like, you really can't put them down. The characters are so interesting and complex, and they change from the beginning to the end of the stories. So whether you participate in the California Young Readers Medal or not, these two books, The War That Saved My Life and The War I Finally Won, are great read at home books. Enjoy. The second book, I'm just going to give you a little short spiel on The Losers Club. I think many of you have read some books by Andrew Clements before. You might even have read Frindle as a class. I know some classes uh, read that, I think, in fourth grade, maybe third grade. The Losers Club is one of Andrew Clement's newer books. This is basically the story of uh, a group of kids who started by this kid named Alec, who are not the typical um, joiners, the ones who usually are like up to join all the activities. They're kids who kind of like to be alone. Um, they like to read, they like to do their own thing, they like to, kind of do their solitary activities, and they are not the coolest kids in school. So when the principal has kind of giving them a hard time for not joining any activities, they decide to form their own club, the Losers Club, the club that for the kids who don't want to be a part of anything else. In typical Andrew Clements style, it's funny, it's relatable. You really feel like you could, be sitting next to these kids in your own class. So, totally different from The War I Finally Won, but another great book to pass the time when you're at home. I also totally recommend anything else by Andrew Clements. A few other favorites. I love A Week in the Woods, um, and many others by him. So uh, this is The Losers Club. I don't have it here, but the third nominee is called The Detective's Assistant. Um, it is another book of historical fiction, like in that way, very much like The War I Finally Won, except totally different tone and type of story. It's a mystery. Um, it's a story of again, two children who are orphaned, but in this case, they become assistants to a very famous detective. A detective who was a real detective in the United States in the 19th century, famous for thwarting some plots to assassinate presidents and like kind of all the big exciting cases. Detective Pinkerton was the one. So this is the story of two kids who find themselves apprenticed to this fabulous detective and are on the road to many exciting adventures. These are books that I feel like appeal to boys and girls. They're really they challenge you to imagine new places, new times, other people's feelings, and I think they're just really enjoyable too. So I absolutely encourage you to participate in the California Young Readers Medal, or maybe just read one of those if you feel like it. I have a couple other books I just wanted to share with you while I'm here because as you're thinking about what you might want to read, why not? This is a book that is brand new that we just got at the library a couple weeks ago, and I don't think I've talked about it to anybody yet because I brought it home to read it. This is called I Can Make This Promise, and for those of you, I think this is not really a category that I've talked much about right here, but this is just like pretty straightforward, realistic fiction with a really interesting perspective. Um, Edie, the main character of this book, is your age. She's um, 11 or 12 years old. She lives in Seattle with her mom and dad. She has a very small family, and this is kind of, she doesn't really know too much about her family before the events of the story take place, but she knows that she doesn't have a lot of family. She's an only child. Her dad is an only child. She doesn't know any of her grandparents. her mom's parents died before she was born, and she has one uncle who she's very close with, but like no cousins, no anything like that. She also knows that her mom was adopted, and she knows that her mom's biological parents, her birth parents, were Native American. Her dad is white, her mom's adoptive parents were white. And so, even though her mom was Native American and she looks very much like her mom, and when people see her, they see her as looking very Native American, and they ask her about her Native American heritage, she really doesn't know anything about it. So, when this story takes place, it's the summertime. Edie is working on a project with two of her friends, Amelia and Serenity, to make a short film for a student film festival. And, it's the summertime. They're looking for things to do. They're kind of, they're starting middle school. They're sort of seeing their friendships being tested and pulled apart in different ways. Their interests are changing. And at the beginning of the summer, as they're starting to work on this, they discover in Edie's attic a box. And in this box are photographs and letters and papers, all containing information about Edie's biological grandmother, who they now know is her namesake. Her name is Edith Graham. And these are all the secrets that Edie's parents have never told her about the story of her mom's adoption, the story of her Native American heritage, and Edie now has decided she needs to know the truth about her family. There are so many things in this book that feel like, oh, like this is a life that you can relate to, that could be any one of you. And there are so many of the things and other things in this book that are so unique to this situation and this person's life, and that open my eyes to the history and culture of this specific Native American tribal experience, and um, many things that happen in American history to Native American families in general. It's really interesting. It's also a very quick read. It feels like you just sort of float through this book. So this is I Can Make This Promise by Christine Day. This book is brand new. It is probably it should be widely available in those two bookstores in Vroman's or um, Once Upon a Time. So that's it, everybody. I'm going to send you a list with many more recommendations, books that I know are available right away from Libby, and books that you can get from the bookstore if you choose to do that. And I'm happy to give you more specific recommendations. You can always email me. Um, I will include all my contact information as well. And please feel free if you want to just check in for any reason. I would love to talk to you. And I will be checking in again with more great books, lessons. Next week we'll read something together. And I will see you then. Be well, everybody.